Welcome everyone to the Thunder Buddies podcast, your source for all things Thunder basketball, courtesy of the Oklahoman. I'm Justin Martinez, joined today by our columnist Joe Mussatto. Joe, how you doing today, man?
I'm good, Justin. Basketball is back. We were at Paycom Center for Thunder Media Day, and yeah, it feels like we were just in there for Game 7 of the NBA Finals, and now a new season is upon us.
Yeah, crazy to think that was just a couple months ago. You had the draft right after that. You had Vegas Summer League free agency, and then right before that, or right before you know it, we're back here. Preseason play starting this Sunday for the Thunder. A game against the Charlotte Hornets in Charleston, South Carolina, of all places. That'll be the first of six preseason games, and then before you know it, it's going to be opening night, ring night for the reigning champion Thunders on October 21st against a very familiar face in Kevin Durant and the Houston Rockets. But like you said, before all of that happened, we got to go to media day. And Joe, you're someone who covered the team when they really started this new era of Thunder basketball. Just what did you maybe sense? Did you sense any differences in the way these guys carried themselves now that they've gone from, one of the worst teams in the NBA to a champion?
Justin, I really didn't, and I think that is like credit to the Thunder and like the culture they're building because I outside of the questions of, you know, what do you think of repeating or like having the target on your back? Like the same answers they had could have been answers they had last year or the year before that. I thought it was a pretty mature day for the Thunder and their responses, very much following in what Sam Presti said a week prior. This isn't a team where, they're going to be, still soaking in the limelight of winning a title. Like it was, I don't know if subdued is the right word, but it wasn't like, yeah, we did this and now we're out to do it again. It was I guess they had some of that humility that Sam Presti was talking about.
Yeah, and also, I mean, this is still a young team. Like, it's not like they're fully grown up. They're all
Yeah.
vets or anything like that. You do still have some vets on the team, but for the most part, these are guys who are, hoping to get right back to that point and still have a lot of time to continue to grow as well. So yeah, I did also get that sense that it was a lot of the same usual Thunder talk. We really do need to come out with an article that has a list of all the Thunder vocab and slang and all that stuff, phrases. I think that would be good. But yeah, got to talk to pretty much everyone. The only person we didn't talk to was Kenrich Williams. Now, OKC announced yesterday that he underwent an arthroscopic procedure on his left knee and that we would get an update on his timeline after the procedure, which, like I said, was yesterday. So expecting that pretty soon. Kenrich, not the most consistent role in terms of his stats, but Joe, you put out a really nice article on him last postseason. He's one of the longest tenure Thunder players, arguably the heart and soul of this team, a mentor to many. So just a really unfortunate setback for him right before the start of preseason play.
Yeah, and he's one of the quote unquote old guys on this team, and he was probably someone that wasn't going to play heavy minutes in the regular season anyway. And you mentioned it there, like his role, he can still do that even if he can't play. But yeah, just unfortunate for Kinrich just to have any sort of setback with his knee, but doesn't sound like a serious thing at all. He'll be back, and 2 years ago, looking back to that playoffs against Dallas, he really wasn't playing at all. He wasn't in the rotation. Um, Never got a clear answer whether or not that was injury based or not. But then last year, played a pretty key role in some of those playoff series en route to the Thunder's championship. So certainly not a thing that you would expect to linger. But yeah, Kenrich was the only absence. I mean, even Thomas Sorber, who is coming off that uh, um, ACL, right?
ACL, yeah.
Yeah, ACL procedure. He was there. So, all in all, I think the Thunder's entering the season pretty healthy.
Yeah, without a doubt. And like you said, he could still be that mentor from the sidelines. It is a arthroscopic procedure, so minimally invasive. Hopefully, it's not something that will keep him out long term. Again, we'll see once we get an update from the Thunder. I will say one thing though, if he were to miss some time, he is someone who is capable of playing some five. Thomas Sorber, like I mentioned, is also going to be out. So those are two possible center options. They might be without for a bit, but either way, I mean, this is still a team that's as deep as any in the league. You've got Chet and Ihart, two 7-footers who I'd imagine they're going to stagger their minutes. Make sure that one of them is on the floor. You've got Jay Will off the bench. Actually, both Jalen's. J Dub played some center as well last season when needed. And then you got Brandon Carlson as well, who Sam Presti raved about recently. So, yeah, again, very unfortunate for Kenrich, but hopefully it doesn't keep him out for too long. And if he does miss some time, OKC has the options to fill that production. But getting into media day, Joe, just we got to talk to pretty much everyone. What was maybe something or someone that we talked to that, they said something that really stood out to you?
Well, I went into media day wanting to write about Chet Holmgren and just him being, in my mind, the most intriguing player on this team, just because we've seen these peaks and valleys, and the valleys are associated with injuries and setbacks and everything like that. But I just think back to we were looking at his stats from those first 9 games last year before the hip injury, and even though he came back and was impactful and had 5 blocks, like Shea said, in Game 7 of the NBA Finals, still wasn't like that pre-injury Chet. So um, I thought the way, obviously, you're always going to pump up your teammates, but I thought the way that Shea talked about Chet um, was pretty eye opening. He said that Chet isn't even a fraction of the player that he's going to be, and then he said, "This is a very profound quote, Justin. People in the universe have no choice but to watch Chet Holmgren grow into the player that he's going to be. So we're people in the universe. Shea said it's
Yeah.
going to happen, so we shall see."
Yeah, for sure. You mentioned those averages, those first 9 games. Obviously, the 10th one was the Golden State one, only
Yeah.
played, I think, like 5 minutes. But those 9 games, he was averaging 18.2 points, 9.2 rebounds, 2.9 blocks, and then shooting 40% from deep on a decent amount of attempts. I think it was like 3 point something. So got off to a really hot start to the season. Obviously, it's going to take him some time to get back into that rhythm, but still contributed during OKC's title run. And yeah, if he's able to stay healthy this season, that has been the main thing, obviously. He's only played in 52.3% of his games since he joined the Thunder 3 seasons ago. But if he's able to stay healthy, I mean, there's no reason why this guy can't have the same type of season that J Dub had. Honestly,
Yeah.
you can be a first time All Star, can make an All NBA team, can compete for a Defensive Player of the Year award as well, which is, something that I think he can definitely reach. So, yeah, definitely a lot of potential there. And he really is that guy, as you wrote about that, you know, Shea, we're talking about marginal improvements now. The guy's the MVP already, a top 3, 2 player in the world, whoever, depending on who you ask. J Dub's already an all NBA player as well. I mean, Chet is that guy who could take that next big step to really, make this team even scarier, essentially.
Yeah, like taking nothing away from J-Dub's season, he was awesome last year, but was third team NBA in part because some other guys maybe ahead of him had injuries. But I thought before the season, if the Thunder has two all NBA guys, I think Chet would be the second. And I think he was, even though that was a small sample, he was well on his way. There's certainly a world where all three of those guys make all NBA. If they can stay healthy. It's just the health is such a big X factor for Chet. It'll be interesting to see how they sort of use him this year because last time we saw him fully healthy, he played all 82 games, 2 seasons ago. So uh, we'll see how that works out. But what were some of your main takeaways from media day, Justin?
Yeah, I think one of them, and it kind of goes back to what we were talking about earlier, that kind of the culture that this team has built. I think talking to Jalen Williams, you could really see just that is, I guess, the winning formula that they have managed to create here. Is he was asked about, you're a good player, you could probably play even more somewhere else. And I've got his quote here. He said, "Every time I step on the court, every time I tie my shoes, every time I do a layup, anytime I do anything, I'm blessed to be there. I'm sitting on the bench watching those guys go out there and kill whoever they're playing against. I'm blessed to be here." And he's pretty much just saying that, the minutes aren't really a big thing for him. He just wants to contribute to the team. And we saw just how effective that mindset is last season, not just with OKC, but with the team they faced in the finals as well. I mean, Indiana also had a team with a lot of depth, great team chemistry. I think J-Dub call it the power of friendship approach to the game. And I think Jay Will is just somebody who really embodies that, honestly.
Yeah, and it's kind of a precious thing now because you don't know how long it's going to last with some of these role players. buying into their role, knowing that maybe they could do more somewhere else. I mean, Aaron Wiggins is a great example of that. Even Isaiah Joe, who played a pretty large role in the regular season, his minutes were cut down during the playoffs. Um, part of the Thunder's magic is the depth, and they were pretty much healthy during the playoffs, and I think that's because uh, they managed some injuries with that depth. But yeah, Jay Will's obviously a big part of that. The dude just lights up every room he goes into. So um, interesting too that he talked about maybe losing some weight in the off season, which I think is interesting because he's gonna need that weight if they play Denver again in the playoffs because he was a bruiser against Jokic, but he's constantly gotten himself in better shape, and I think really you've seen that on the defensive end more than anything, where he used to be this guy who uh, is kind of gimmicky. It was just taking charges was his main form of defense, and now we've seen him become, not a good defender for a center, but certainly a viable option. As he's the best third string center in the NBA, Justin, but I think he's a viable backup too.
Yeah, and then also an above league average 3-point shooter at his position. I mean, able to space the floor, just does a little bit of everything. And then yeah, like we talked about, also that stuff that's hard to quantify. The boost to the team morale and whatnot. So yeah, he signed a 3-year, $24 million contract extension. He talked about also that he bought a home here recently. He's just happy that he's gonna be able to have family gatherings for the holidays here and stuff. So yeah, just another one of those guys who I think really does embody what makes this team what it is. Who's somebody else that we talked to that really stood out to you?
I'm just thinking that the J Will house would be what a jolly place on the holidays,
Yeah,
just him hosting. Um, I thought Shea was, pretty matter of fact. One of my favorite quotes was, uh, he said it would suck to not win the 2026 NBA championship. Just classic Shea putting it matter of factly. Um, I like that. I mean, Mark Daignault, he didn't have a ton to say, but basically, Barry asked him, how has your life changed since the championship? And he said it really hasn't, aside from his kids getting older and everything like that. So I was just curious how these guys would carry themselves coming off of this. I mean, it was predictable that you know they carried themselves in the way they did, but um, you look at media days around the league and like sometimes there's some crazy quotes or you'll see something that goes viral. I don't think the Thunder had a viral media day moment. It was all pretty low key, and I think that's why I'm struggling to even think of someone else that, who stood out.
yeah, I agree. Usually media day, you get a little bit more of just like the kind of jokey questions and responses, and yeah, those are the types of clips you see. There was like a couple here and there, but for the most part, I mean, you could tell that they were back to business. I mean, to be fair, they did have the past couple months to celebrate, so maybe they got out all of their system.
Yeah.
You mentioned how they were carrying themselves. They were carrying around a trophy to a bunch of different places this offseason. Actually, it was 11 different stops, 3 different countries, I guess, including the U.S. But just I guess what was maybe some of the trips that that maybe caught your interest a little bit more. I know it went out to Canada, went out to Germany, which I think was only the second time that the Larry O'Brien Trophy has gone out there, with Dirk being the first one, I would imagine.
Yeah, I thought when Lou was talking about it, that was pretty cool. Just um, he's from neighborhood Montreal Nord, kind of a hard scrabble place. He's talked a lot about how that's shaped him and just him talking about like kids like himself, growing up probably didn't think something like this was possible, and now here he is going back to his neighborhood and bringing the Larry O'Brien Trophy. I thought that was really neat, and just because we've there's obviously been an influx of Canadians, Shea, in the NBA, but not a ton of guys from Montreal. Chris Boucher, it's another.
Benedict Mathurin.
Yeah, Mathurin, who is very close to Lou Dort, and then Shea talking about it as well, like going to he's not from Toronto. He's from Hamilton, just south of Toronto. So bringing it back to Hamilton, not thinking that the trophy would ever be there. Um, and I think that, just it really is crazy. I mean, you've mapped it out. Just all the places this trophy has been, the stadiums, like it's been in a football stadium in Hamilton and a football stadium in what, Texas A&M in College Station,
Yeah.
with Caruso. So quite a summer vacation for Larry.
I will say one funny thing about that was Kaysen got asked about it, and he said that he was one of the few people who didn't get to bring it back home, to the DFW area, and he said they're ball hogs. That's why he wasn't able to bring it. But young guy, I mean, he said he just didn't really understand the procedure. I guess putting in the request and figuring all of that out. So yeah, I'm guessing if they were to win this one again, I would imagine he'd be like top priority, right, to get back around to him. You would think.
That also might be the best quote from Media Day. Him calling them ball hogs for not passing the trophy to him at least once.
Yeah. I will say another person, you touched on it a little bit, but Shay said a lot of the usual stuff, but one thing that, I think is always interesting to hear him talk about is the work that he does kind of behind the scenes in the off season. He's someone who, once you get to that level, it really is the little things that kind of separate you from all the other great players in the world. And he talked about, going back home to Hamilton, working with his trainer there, Nem Illich, someone he's been working with actually since the end of his rookie season back with the Clippers. So, it's not really just like working on the shooting form, but it's also just working on those little things like, you know, putting on muscle, strengthening his core, strengthening his feet to improve his balance. I mean, it really is no surprise that every single season, this guy just manages to get better and better, which is crazy because he's reaching these levels now where, it's hard to imagine what the next step is for Shea, really.
Yeah, and I mean it kind of sounds cliche because it's like, NBA player works on his game in the off season, like, big whoop. But like it really, like I feel like Shea, from everything we know about him, and he proves it. Like it's actions over words, because every season, just when you think, I mean, this guy doesn't have another level to reach, he's already topped out. There's little subtleties in his game that we haven't seen, and I think a lot of those are the product of kind of his workouts from the summer before. Um, yeah, I think he is religious in his off-season work, and I obviously we weren't there, but I doubt that changed even after a championship. I bet he went and kind of did the same thing. You mentioned one of his trainers. He also works with uh, some of his high school buddies that have helped work him out, whether it's just grabbing rebounds or whatever. They're in some of those training sessions as well. So it's kind of like like a almost a humbling process, because he does the same thing every year, no matter if he's coming off an MVP or if he's coming off, his first season in Oklahoma City.
Yeah. One guy who wasn't able to do his usual training process this offseason was Jalen Williams, as he's recovering from a torn ligament in his right shooting wrist, played through it last postseason, underwent surgery on July 1st. And since then, he talked about this yesterday. He's been having to get creative with the way that he has been working out this offseason. The NBA actually put out a video with him that he's practicing a lot more on his left hand, even like knocking down some left-handed mid-range jumpers, which I don't think we'll be seeing too much of in the game, but still someone who continues to work on his game as well. And he talked about how, in a way, it was almost a blessing because it kind of forced him to really slow down. I mean, this past season, a lot was going on, not just for the team, but for him as well. I mean, really broke out as a player, first time All Star, All Defensive Team, All NBA team, championship, 40-point game in the finals. And then, like we said, a very shortened offseason. So I could see how all of that would really be a blur for him. But that really did kind of force him to slow down. Now he has shed his wrist brace earlier this month, and he's back to playing. But Sam Presti said earlier this week in his preseason availability that they're gonna take it slow with him. They're gonna see how he does in training camp, and go from there. But just once he is able to get back to full strength, obviously a great season last year. Where do you kind of see those next steps for J Dub in his game?
I mean, he's so far ahead of schedule. Like I always go back to game 6 at Denver when it was just a total clunker for him. He comes back, um, game 7, he's great against the Timberwolves, great in that series. So obviously had the 40-point finals game, and it was unfair for any of us to ask like, oh, can he be the second best player on a championship team when he's, in his third NBA season or whatever it is. And um, given his age and now that he's already done it, it's like he's still in his pre-prime years. He's still a couple of years away from reaching his prime, and he's already this good. So, um, yeah, it'll be interesting to see kind of when he comes back, if he's ready by the season opener. I have no idea if that's even attainable or not. But I mean, again, it goes back to the depth and talent of this team. It's like they're going to be just fine even if he's not ready to go for a couple of weeks.
Yeah. Another guy we got an injury update on was Thomas Sorber. We mentioned him earlier, but it seemed like he was in good spirits. His injury, I mean, just happened very recently. This
Yeah.
was earlier this month during an offseason workout. Was a torn ACL in his right knee. Just had surgery, I think like a week or two ago. Came in like on, I don't know what you call them, not crutches, but like some sort of like thing to help him walk around, that he was walking around the stadium in. So seemed like he was in good spirits though. And something that it really has become like a reoccurring storyline now that these Thunder incoming rookies just at least they have someone who has experience that they can talk to. Last season it was Topic being able to talk to Chet, who dealt with that, and now Thomas has both of them to talk to as well. So unfortunate setback for him, but I mean it's a situation where he's going to get to kind of watch things from the sideline, have plenty of mentors. And for OKC, it's not like they were really counting on him to contribute too much this season anyways. He was probably already going to have more of a, an understudy role essentially this upcoming season.
Yeah, it's kind of a double-edged sword for these some of these Thunder rookies. It's like, hey, on one hand, you might be joining a championship team. On the other hand, a debilitating injury might befall you before your rookie season. But no, Sorber seemed in good spirits, and I mean, it doesn't. Let's be honest, it does not matter on a basketball level. Like he wasn't going to play a key role, but it's a shame just kind of on a personal level. You feel for the kid. Obviously, you're excited about making your NBA debut and then you get hurt in a, off-season workout. So that sucks. But like you said, there's kind of a pathway because this has happened for a couple of guys in Oklahoma City. Um you just delay what you know about him. I mean, Thomas Sorber is this big mystery box, and you'd like to collect some data on him this year and know what you have, but that's just going to be delayed by a year. But um, the way Sam talked about him, like, seems like he's in good spirits, seems like he's the right personality to kind of fight through an injury like this and the rehab that'll come. So, again, not a basketball loss, but you feel for the kid on a personal level.
Yeah, for sure. Like I said, there's a lot of the same immediate days or anything else that kind of stuck out. I mean, at this point, I feel like covered most of the bases on it. A lot of it was also just most of the same stuff they were saying, I think.
Yeah, I think we got it. I think we covered the highlights, and they're going to be talking a lot more, Justin. We got first day of practice, first day of camp today on Tuesdays. We're recording this, and um, I know you'll be there most of the days. As this thing is about to ramp up.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I think then we can go ahead and wrap this thing up then.
Let's do it.
Joe, I appreciate you for joining me, man, and we'll see you guys next time.